Oh, freezing. So I'm back in the Ogwen Valley, and it's quite different conditions from when I was last week up on L USM, which is up in the clouds there somewhere. So I think I mentioned in my last film, sorry, got to keep clean in the rain, because I mentioned towards the end of my last film, I think, that we were due some snow. Well, we've had snow in the UK and we've had cold weather, so you can already see behind me it's quite a bit of snow. It's actually melting, and Ogwen, Llyn Ogwen is frozen over. In fact, there's some footprints down there where people have been walking out on the lake, which kind of seems a bit mad. Sorry, keep cleaning that for you. But I've been sat in the car for about an hour and a half because it was absolutely battering it down with rain. But I think it's getting a bit brighter. Believe me, this is a bit brighter than it was. So I'm looking down the valley, kind of northwards. Bethesda is in that direction, for those who know the area, and clearly L USM and Egoch and Trevan is up behind me. So Egoch, Egon and Folgoch and so on and so forth, Llued are down there, but they're mostly in the clouds. But what I'm interested in are these great shapes in the ice down here. So hopefully, sorry, clear that again. Need a windscreen wiper on the GoPro. These great ice shapes. So I'm going to try, it'll probably be a portrait. So a portrait looking up that way. And it's a bit grim at the moment, but what I'm hoping, in fact, well, it depends which way I look. It's getting a bit brighter up there, and it's as dark as night up there. So I'm going to work quickly. My camera's getting wet, and it's incredibly slippy underfoot. But I'm going to work quickly, and I'll come back to you in a second. Okay, so I think I've got a composition that I'm relatively happy with, and I'll show you what's going on. So ignore the camera for the minute. So see these kind of rocks in the foreground, and there's a sweep. I hope you can pick it up. There's a sweep of snow, just kind of swooshing inland. Hopefully you can pick that up. So if you bear that in mind, that's this sweep of snow. So I've got it coming from my bottom right hand corner, sweeping up, and what it does is it takes a sweep up across my rule of thirds onto this section here, and then obviously I've got the mountains in the distance. Now at the moment I've got this quite bright, someone asked a great question during the week about the box, and is it the exposure box? Yes, it's the exposure box, and I'm going to show you. I'm taking the exposure reading off that land now with that box. If I switch to automatic exposure, you can see the box gets smaller. Now it's the focus box. So if I was to press my shutter, it would focus on that point. I don't want to do that because I've already focused. But when I go to manual exposure, it goes to a bigger box, and that will take my exposure reading. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a reading on the grass. So that's this grass here. I'm taking a reading on the grass and taking the shot. In fact, that was probably a little bit overexposed. Take a reading on the grass there. Rain's running down the back of my neck. I'm now going over to the snow, and I'm going to take a reading on the snow and take a shot there. So I've taken two shots, two images, and the reason I've done that is I'm going to blend those images together. So the one exposed, obviously, for the grass, the highlights of the snow will be blown out. The one exposed for the snow, the grass will be underexposed. If I blend the best of the two together, hopefully get a decent image. But ooh, there's a couple I feel sorry for. There's a couple of ducks just kind of swimming around in circles in a bit of unfrozen lake. But I'm actually stood on, I guess, what is the edge of the lake. But it's, I'll give you a look how thick that ice is. What's that, an inch? It's about an inch maybe. So if I skids across, there's a layer of water, which I'm probably rainwater, I suppose, lying on top. So it shows how cold it's been this week. Well, that brightness is kind of gone. So I'm going to pack my camera up because it's getting a bit too wet now, and then wait for some more or some less rain rather than more rain. Hope you can still see me through all that wetness. The things we do for photography. So when I last spoke to you, it started to rain quite heavily, but a bit of snow mixed in. So went back to the car and got my rain cover. I've actually put all the rest of my gear, all my filters and everything that's normally in my bag in the car, and I've just got my camera with the lens because everything else was getting too wet. So, and this makes life a little bit, it keeps the camera dry, but it makes life really difficult because, well, as an example, well, I can't really see. I can't really see. And even if sorry, I have to swap hands. That's the other thing. You've got to kind of reach through one side to the other. I very rarely use it, but if I go on to live view, what's that? I can't. So getting a composition is quite difficult. So I'm going to turn live view on. So I'll show you with the good old-fashioned hand and eye method. Sorry about the rain on the lens. So I've come around the corner. I was around the corner a little bit. I come around the corner because I did a portrait orientation, but I also wanted a landscape orientation to try and get the kind of the breadth of the lake, looking kind of towards the head of the valley, and kind of these rocks are helping me in the foreground. So there's kind of a semicircle of rocks which are helping. Obviously the kind of ice is kind of enclosing the rocks, which is great. And then occasionally there's enough light at the head of the valley for me to take an image. So I've used hyperfocal calculation. That's one of my favourite phrases at the moment, isn't it? So hopefully what will happen is I'll get the rocks and the far distance in focus, but this is causing me one or two problems. The other challenge is with the ice and snow, you're not really sure what if you put your foot on the snow, you're not really sure whether there's a hole underneath, so you just got to be very, very careful. So I can't really show you the composition on the camera because of this, but I need to keep the camera dry. So, but the composition starts and ends with these rocks, and I'm exposing for kind of I guess I'm feeling a black and white image coming on. So I imagine it'll be a kind of black and white grainy. If there was sunlight or at least some brightness at the end of the valley, I could probably go for a nice kind of coloured balanced image. But I think in these circumstances, black and white is probably the best. I almost said black and white's the best I could manage, but actually some black and white photographs, I think some of the black and white photographs I've taken recently actually have been some of my best. So never think of black and white as a kind of poorer relation to colour. It's just different. So going to stay here. It doesn't seem to be clearing up all that much. I'm going to hang around a bit and see what happens. I'm not sure I need to say much, do I? Weather's got worse. I've moved back round to where I was originally because I like the composition with the shoreline. The cloud has lifted a little bit, so I'll clean the lens a bit and then show you. So cloud has lifted a little bit. You might not be able to see it at all on the GoPro. But I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't, because it's not lifted that much, and the rain's getting heavier and heavier. So I'm going to pack up and go back to the car, dry stuff off, and then head down the valley a little bit and see if I can see anything a bit further down the valley. Challenge is, at the moment I'm photographing everything in that direction because there's no way I can photograph looking that way. Sorry, because the rain would be hitting the lens constantly and there's no sign of it letting up. So, and to be honest, it's getting a bit cold. So, whoa. And it's like ice skating as well. So packing the camera up, go and dry it off, head down the valley a bit and see what we can see. Well, I think it's safe to say that that's the end of the day. Oh, horrible conditions, really. I'll turn you around and show you. Well, it's absolutely chucking it down. So I came along the lake around the end. So there's a weir at the end. So I parked up there, got out of the car, had a bit of a look around, but it's absolutely chucking it down with rain. And it's still, you know, look, can you look at the mountains? Yeah, so not great. So I'm calling it a day. I don't mind getting a bit wet, but there's getting a bit wet and then getting very wet and very cold. So quite a marked contrast between my previous film. But anyway, hope you enjoyed kind of the short view of Llyn and some of the ice and snow. And look forward to any comments, questions, all that type of stuff. And I'll see you on the next one. So, and hopefully a bit of sunshine or at least no rain. See you next time. Bye.